Now, let's get into the promises made to Abraham. Because as you already know, Abraham is considered the father of many nations. And we see that there were specific promises made to Abraham. And we can find that in the book of Genesis, Genesis 15, 13 to 14. Let's go in depth and take a look at this here. All right. Genesis 15, 13 to 14. And this is quoted from the book of Yahweh, but it's the same in any other version. Then he said to Abraham, I'm sorry. Then he said to Abram, know certainly that your descendants will be strangers in a land not their own, and they will be enslaved, and they will afflict them 400 years. 14. But the nation enslaving them will I judge, and afterward they will come out with great possessions. So the Most High is telling Abram at that time, before he called him Abraham, that his descendants were going to be held captive for 400 years. And after that 400-year time period, at some point, that nation enslaving them will be judged. And I believe that that is that judgment day that we see all throughout Revelations, all throughout Joel or Yael and Isaiah and many other places. It's talking about the same judgment. So let's go in depth a little bit more. Let's go into that same chapter. Let's go into the King James Bible. And I like to read a little bit, go back a little bit to get some backstory, some context. So let's read it again, but let's read it from verse 1. Okay, so this is Genesis 15, verse 1. After these things, the word of Yahweh came unto Abram in a vision, saying, fear not, Abram, I am thy shield, and thy exceeding great reward. And Abraham said, Most High, what wilt thou give me, seeing I go childless? And the steward of my house is Eleazar of Damascus. And Abram said, behold, to me thou hast given no seed, and lo, one born in my house is mine heir. And behold, the word of Yahweh came unto him, saying, this shall not be thine heir, but he that come forth out of thine own bowels shall be thine heir. And he brought him forth abroad, and said, look now toward heaven, and tell the stars, if thou be able to number them. And he said unto him, so shall thy seed be. And he, Abraham, believed in the Most High, and he accounted, and he counted it to him for righteousness, meaning the Most High counted it towards Abraham as righteousness for believing in the Most High that he would fulfill these promises. Number 7. And he said unto him, I am your father that brought thee out of Ur of the Chaldees to give thee this land to inherit it. So the Most High is making it plain that part of this promise to Abraham and Abraham's descendants also include land area. Number 8. And he said, my father, whereby shall I know that I shall inherit it? And he said unto him, take me an heifer of 3 years old, and a she-goat of 3 years old, and a ram of 3 years old, and a turtle dove, and a young pigeon. And he took unto him all these, and divided them in the midst, and laid each piece one against each other. But the birds divided he not. And when the fowls came down upon the carcass, Abram drove them away. And when the sun was going down, a deep sleep fell upon Abram, and lo, and horror of great darkness fell upon him. And he said unto Abram, Know of a surety that thy seed shall be a stranger in a land that is not theirs, and shall serve them, and they shall afflict them 400 years. And also that nation whom they shall serve will I judge, and afterward shall they come out with great substance. And thou shalt go to thy fathers in peace. Thou shalt be buried in a ripe old age, but in the fourth generation they shall come hither again, for the iniquity of the Amorites is not yet full. So 17, and it came to pass that when the sun went down and it was dark, behold, a smoking furnace and a burning lamp that passed between those pieces. In the same day the Most High made a covenant with Abram, saying, Unto thy seed have I given this land, from the river of Egypt unto the great river, the river Euphrates, the Canaanites, and the Kenizzites, and the Cadmonites, and the Hittites, and the Perizzites, and the Rephaims. I'm sorry, I butchered that last one. And the Amorites, and the Canaanites, and the Girgashites, and the Jebusites. So, you can do an image search of the land promised to Abraham. Pretty much this is what we're looking at. This thing is out of focus. We're looking from here to a piece of Egypt to Saudi Arabia, up through Kuwait, and splitting up through Iraq and Syria, and a little bit into Turkey, and probably a lot of this coastal area right here. Definitely Syria, Jordan, Israel, I don't remember, yeah, Lebanon. All this area right here is the land that the Most High promised Abraham. Now, a key piece of information, he tells Abraham that his descendants will be enslaved 400 years. And we need to look for a group of people that claim a 400-year captivity. Let's go down to Deuteronomy 28, because in Deuteronomy, this is where the covenant between the Most High and the people begins to be established. Okay? The blessings and the curses. The blessings for obeying the covenant, and the curses for disobeying the covenant. So let's take a look. Deuteronomy 28, 1 to 14. And it will be, if you will listen diligently to the voice of Yahweh your Father, by observing and doing all his laws, which I command you this day, that Yahweh your Father will set you high above all the nations of the earth as his kings and priests. And all these blessings will come upon you and accompany you, because you obey Yahweh your Father. Notice, blessed will you be in the city, and blessed will you be in the country. Blessed will be the fruit of your body, the produce of your ground, and the young of your livestock, the calves of your herds, and the lambs of your flocks. Blessed will be your basket and your storehouse. Blessed will you be when you come in, and blessed will you be when you go out. Yahweh will cause your enemies who rise up against you to be defeated in front of you. They will come out against you from one direction, but flee from you in 7 directions. Yahweh will send a blessing on your barns and your storehouses, and in everything you set your hand to do. Yahweh will bless you in the land which Yahweh your Father is giving you. Again, in the covenant, we see the land. 9. Yahweh will establish you as his holy people unto himself, as he promised you on oath, if you will keep the laws of Yahweh your Father, and walk in all his ways. 10. Then all the people on the earth will see that you are called by the name of Yahweh, and they will fear you. Yahweh will grant you plenteous possessions in the fruit of your body, in the increase of your livestock, and in the produce of your ground. In the land Yahweh vowed an oath to your fathers to give to you. So this is like the second or third time we're mentioning land. That covenant outside of the promise of the land doesn't exist. The land, the people, and the covenant all are one package deal. Yahweh will open the heavens, the storehouses of his bountiful treasure, to send rain upon your land in its season, and to bless all the work of your hands. You will lend to many nations, but you will borrow from none. 13. Yahweh will make you the head and not the tail. You will be at the top only and never be at the bottom, if you will pay attention to the laws of Yahweh your Father, which I command you this day, and are then careful to observe and do them. For if you diligently observe and do all of Yahweh's laws, then you will not turn aside from any of the laws which I command you this day, to the right hand nor to the left, by going after any god Elohim to serve it. So these are conditions. If you abide by these laws, right? These laws that you can find in Leviticus and Deuteronomy, thou shalt not steal, love your neighbor, don't extort, don't kidnap. All of these rules and regulations, which weren't hard at all, they were basic moral principles that anybody could live by. Don't covet your neighbor's possessions. Don't commit adultery. Don't, don't finesse your neighbor's wife. Those things. But also in Deuteronomy 28, 15, 19, there's also curses for breaking this covenant, right? Notice these curses. Take stock of this. However, if you do not obey Yahweh your Father, and do not carefully follow all his laws and his statutes, which I command you this day, then all these curses will come upon you and accompany you. 16. Cursed will you be in the city, and cursed will you be in the country. 17. Cursed will be your basket and your storehouse. Cursed will be the fruit of your body, your children, the fruit of your body, the produce of your land, the calves of your herds, and the lambs of your flocks. Cursed will you be when you come in, and cursed will you be when you go out. Okay, Deuteronomy 28, 29 to 34 in the book of Yahweh. And you shall grope at noonday, reduced to blind helplessness. Just as a blind man gropes in darkness, you will not be successful in any of your ways. You will only be oppressed and robbed continually, with no one to rescue you. You will be betrothed to be married to a woman, but another will take her and sleep with her. You will build a house, but you will not live in it. You will plant a vineyard, but you will not gather its grapes. Your ox will be slaughtered in front of your eyes, but you will not eat any of it. Your donkey will be forcibly taken away from you, and it will not be returned. Your sheep will be given to your enemies, and no one will rescue them. Your sons and daughters will be given to another nation, while you are looking on, and you will be powerless to lift a hand to stop it. 33. A nation whom you have not known will eat the fruit of your land and the produce of your labor, and you will have nothing but crushing oppression. In this way, you will be driven mad because of the things you have seen. Right? Deuteronomy 28, 36 to 37. Yahweh will bring you and the king whom you set over you to a nation which neither you nor your fathers have heard of. Right? Remember, the Most High says you're going to be led captive into a foreign land. He said that to Abraham for 400 years. You have people that say, oh, well, they were in Egypt for 400 years. And I'm going to address that, right? But here in Deuteronomy, these are prophecies, right? And there, so in that land, and there you will worship gods of wood and stone, Elohim and Teraphim. And you will become a thing of horror, a taunt, and the object of biting remarks among all nations where Yahweh will drive you. So here the Most High is promising and prophesying through Moses. This is what is going to occur. If you keep these laws that I command you this day, you will be blessed, you will be fruitful, you will increase, you will multiply, and you will not diminish. But if you start turning away from this, after you as a nation of people have agreed to this, then these things will surely come upon you. And when you are driven into all nations, you will become an object of ridicule and biting remarks. You will be looked down upon. Okay? Deuteronomy 28:41. You will beget sons and daughters, but you will not keep them. Why? Because they will go into captivity. Again, he says to Abram, your descendants are going to be taken away captives into a land that they do not know for 400 years. Okay? Therefore, you will serve your enemies, whom Yahweh will send against you in hunger, in thirst, in nakedness, in dire need of everything. And he will put a yoke of iron on your neck until he has destroyed you. Yahweh will bring a nation against you from far away, from the end of the earth, like an eagle swooping down, a nation whose language you will not understand. It's interesting we see a reference of an eagle in parallel with the nation, with a language they do not understand. So this nation is going to take the Israelites after they have transgressed this covenant, and they're going to serve them with crushing oppression. Notice, a fierce looking nation which has no respect for the old nor pity for the young. A simple Google search of a yoke of iron will show you this. Okay, this is what a yoke of iron looks like. Okay, yoke of iron. Iron. Notice the people understood what they were getting into. It wasn't something that they didn't comprehend. As Deuteronomy 29:12-13 shows you, you are standing here in order to enter into a covenant with Yahweh your Father, a covenant Yahweh is making with you this day, and sealing with an oath to establish and confirm you this day as a people unto himself, and that he may be your father, just as he promised you, and as he had vowed an oath to your fathers, to Abram, Isaac, and Jacob. We know that the Israelites were in the land of Egypt for about 430 years. Anybody that tries to come to you and says, well, that 400 years was fulfilled, no. The Most High said 400 years. He didn't say 430 years. Also, the time that was spent in Egypt wasn't the full 430 years. Some say 210, some say 215, some say 215 in Israel and 215 in Canaan. Regardless, the Most High wasn't talking about Egypt back then. The Israelites, many of them understood Egyptian language and could communicate with that. And part of Egypt was already given to them, right? Part of Egypt was already given to the Israelites as part of the promised land. So it cannot be Egypt. And furthermore, in Acts 7, when they're about to stone Stephen, notice what Stephen says when he addresses the Sanhedrin. Then he, Stephen, then said the high priest, then said the high priest, I'm sorry, are these things so? Now this is Stephen. And he said, men, brethren, and fathers, hearken to Yahweh of glory. Hearken, the glory of Yahweh appeared unto our father Abraham when he was in Mesopotamia, before he dwelt in Charan. And he said unto him, get thee out of thy country and from thy kindred, and come into the land which I shall shew thee, or show thee. Then came he out of the land of the Chaldeans, and dwelt in Charan. And from thence, when his father was dead, he removed him into this land, wherein ye now dwell. This is what Stephen is saying, reminding them, right? And he gave him none inheritance in it. No, not so much as to set his foot on. Yet he promised that he would give it to him for a possession, and to his seed after him, when as yet he had no child. And the Most High spake on this wise, that his seed should sojourn in a strange land, and that they should bring them into bondage, captivity, bondage, slavery, same thing, and entreat them evil 400 years. And the nation to whom they shall be in bondage will I judge, says the Most High. And after that, they, the Israelites who were kept in bondage, they shall come forth and serve me in this place, meaning that they're going to be returned back to their land, right? Number 8, and he gave him the covenant of circumcision. And so Abraham begot Isaac and circumcised him the 8th day. And Isaac begot Jacob, and Jacob begot the 12 patriarchs. Okay? Look at Luke, when the Messiah, Yeshua Messiah, was even warning. He was taking from Deuteronomy 28 when he started to warn them. You can look at this in Matthew 24, but in Luke it expands upon it further. Notice, Yeshua, the Messiah, is saying, and when ye shall see Jerusalem compassed with armies, then know that the desolation thereof is nigh. Then let him which are in Judea flee to the mountains, and let them which are in the midst of it depart out, and let not them that are in the countries enter thereinto. For these be the days of vengeance, that all things which are written may be fulfilled. 23. But woe unto them that are with child, and to them that give suck in those days, for there shall be great distress in the land, and wrath upon this people. Notice, and they the people, and they shall fall by the edge of the sword, and shall be led away captive into all nations. And Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles, until the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled. Let me know how many people are getting this in their churches. The Most High is telling, there are other organizations that twist this particular scripture and say, oh, the nuclear wars is going to start and the nuclear bomb this is what it's talking about. No, not so, because the Most High is telling you that at that time the people are going to be led away captive into all nations. And after they're led away captive, Jerusalem is going to be trodden down by who? The Gentiles. When? Until the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled. So what are the times of the Gentiles? Has it come? Remember, this hasn't, the times of the Gentiles, right? The time of the Gentiles or Gentiles times is a biblical concept primarily from Luke 21:24, referring to a prophetic era where non-Jewish nations dominate Jerusalem and world events, starting with the Babylonian conquest and lasting until the second coming of the Savior. So, last time I checked, the Savior had not come back to earth again. And he says here in Luke that Jerusalem is going to be trodden down by the Gentiles until the times of the Gentiles are fulfilled. And we see that the time that expires for the Gentiles to be in that land, that promised land, okay, will expire when Yeshua comes back. That's right there for everybody to see. This is not me saying it. This is right here. For those who, I'm not here to put down anybody. I'm not here to deny anybody anything. All I'm saying is this is what the scripture is saying. The Israelites of the Bibles must fit a 400-year prophecy, must be scattered into all nations, and Jerusalem will be occupied by Gentiles until Messiah returns. Notice Exodus 19:5-8. Now therefore, if you will truly obey my voice by keeping my covenant, then you shall be a special treasure to me above all people, for all the earth is mine. And you shall be to me a kingdom of peace, priests, and a holy nation. These are the laws that you shall speak to the children of Israel. And Moshe, or Moses, came and summoned the elders of the people and set before them all the words of the law of Yahweh. And all the people answered together and said, all that Yahweh has spoken we will do. So Moshe brought their answer back to Yahweh. And history shows that they didn't. Eventually, the children started turning away and started worshiping gods and started to do all type of, things that the nations around them were doing, sacrificing their children in the fire, keeping pagan customs. So eventually the Most High scattered them, which we see. And that scattering that was a result of the transatlantic slave trade. Notice, and is worth reading again, Genesis 15:13-14. Then he said to Abram, know certainly that your descendants will be strangers in a land not their own, and they will be enslaved, and they will afflict them 400 years. But the nation enslaving them will I judge. Why does the Most High have to judge that nation? Well, obviously that nation is wicked and has behaved excessive towards the Israelites. And the Most High says, I'm going to judge them. And afterwards, the Israelites, will come out with great possessions. This is what many refer to as the second Exodus, right? And I'm not here by any means promoting saying one group is better than the other. Because notice what Leviticus 19:33-34 says. And this is a part of the law. If a stranger lives with you in your land, do not mistreat him. So a stranger can be anybody from any ethnicity or background. If that stranger comes into that promised land to dwell, the Israelites are bound by the law not to mistreat them if that stranger wants to join themselves to the Israelites. Notice, the stranger living with you must be treated as one of your native born, and you shall love him as yourself. For you were strangers in the land of Egypt. I am Yahweh. Notice Leviticus 24:22, Book of Yahweh. You shall have the same law for the stranger and for the one from your own country. For I am Yahweh, your father. Numbers 15:15-16. 15. One ordinance shall be for you of the congregation, and for the stranger who sojourns with you, as an ordinance forever throughout your generations. As you are, so shall the stranger be in front of Yahweh. One law and one manner shall be for you and for the stranger who sojourns with you. So there's no mistaking. You cannot be of the original stock, the Israelites, and then anyone from anywhere who joins with you in serving the Most High, you can't mistreat that person. Neither can that person boast against the natural branch. That won't be accepted. Okay? Where did I want to go? Deuteronomy. Okay? Now notice, when we were saying about some people might say that, yeah, the children of Israel lived and were enslaved in Egypt. But look at Exodus 12, right? We're going to read, this should be from the Amplified. It's just a little, I like reading from the Amplified. It's easier to read without that old English. None of us talk like that anymore. So notice 40. Now the period of time the children of Israel lived in Egypt was 430 years. At the end of the 430 years, to that very day, all the host of the Most High gathered into tribal armies left the land of Egypt. So again, that 400 years isn't linked to Egypt. Even the Messiah is telling you, you're going to be led away captive. And when you see armies surrounding Jerusalem at that time, which we know in history, Titus took the artifacts to Rome, destroyed the second temple. We know that. And Israel got sent into slavery. Okay? Here's a term I want you all to look up. It's called British Israelism. Okay? British Israelism, also called Anglo-Israelism, states that people of Western Europe descent, particularly those in Great Britain, are the direct lineal descendants of the 10 lost tribes of Israel. The doctrine often includes the tenet that the British royal family is the directly descended from the line of King David. And this is from Wikipedia. You can go here and look at this for yourself. British Israelism. All right? But I want to point out something to you here. Let's look at the transatlantic slave trade. This you can find from the University of Richmond, right? University of Richmond documenting much of the slave trade. We know West Africa was the slave coast. We know the children of Israel were scattered to all these places. Me, I was born in Jamaica. Many people who are listening were born in either these islands or in the United States, Europe, South America, so forth. Either way, we know ourselves, we aren't native of these countries. We all know that. We were all taught a lot of these stories when we were young, but we didn't pay much attention to these things. Most of our parents and our foreparents were singing of going back home to Zion. Listen to much of reggae music. Listen to Bob Marley. Many of you who have heard Bob Marley, that's what that was his message. Returning the people back to the land. Exodus, movement of Jah people. We know where we're going. We know where we're from. We're leaving Babylon, going to our father's land. He's talking about these things, and many of the Jamaican artists knew that. Many of the Trinidadian people know this. Ghana, you name it, South America. We know this to be true. Okay? Remember, the Most High said he was going to scatter the children of Israel because of disobedience. Here are some of the scriptures that showcase that. Deuteronomy 28. And Yahweh will scatter you among all nations from one end of the earth to another. There you will worship gods of wood and stone, Elohim and Teraphim, which neither you nor your ancestors have known. Leviticus 26 to 33. I will scatter you among the nations and will draw out a sword after you. Your land shall be desolate and your cities wasted. Yechezkel or Ezekiel 12 to 15. Then they will know that I am Yahweh when I scatter them among the nations and disperse them into the countries. Nehemiah 1 8 to 9. Remember the law you commanded your servant Moses, saying, if you transgress, I will scatter you throughout the nations. But if you turn to me and keep my laws and observe and do them, even though some of you are thrust to the furthest reaches of the earth, I will gather them from there and bring them to the place which I have chosen as a dwelling for my name. And we have not seen that yet because we're still living in the time of the Gentiles. Remember? Jeremiah or Jeremiah. I will also scatter them among the heathen, Gentile nations, whom neither they nor their fathers have known. And I will send a sword after them until they have consumed them. Again, Psalms 106:27. To make their descendants fall in the heathen nations, and to scatter them throughout the lands. Zechariah 7:14. I scattered them with a whirlwind among all the nations which they had not known. Remember, they knew Egypt, right? So he's not speaking of Egypt. In this way, the land was left desolate after them, and no man went through nor came back, for they made the land of beauty desolate. So remember, the Most High promises Abraham that his descendants will be enslaved or afflicted for 400 years in a land that they do not know. And lo and behold, we look to the United States. There is a 400 years of African American History Commission Act. You can go to congress.gov, the United States official website for legislation. So we can see the 400 years of African American History Commission Act was introduced, passed the House, passed the Senate, went to the president to be signed, and once he signed it, it became law. And this act was about, you know, acknowledging the contribution of African Americans in the United States. You would have to go through it yourself, which you can. I'm not going to go through it here, but you can see a little bit of it here. You know, educational programs, educating people and students about African American history and the contributions, and so forth and so forth. So we have a nation where the Most High says that the descendants of Abraham were going to be taken into slavery and captive. Of course, they were enslaved in other nations too. You have Haiti, you have Jamaica, you have everywhere else. But notice they were taken there through the transatlantic slave trade by nations more powerful than them. Again, it was never in Egypt. The Israelites were never in the land of Egypt for 400 years as a part of that prophecy the Most High said to Abraham. They were in Egypt for 430 years. Notice Galatians 3:15 to 19. 15, brothers, let me give you an example. Even in ordinary life, no one can do away with, nor can they add to a human covenant once it has been duly ratified. So it is in this case. Now the promises were made to Abraham concerning the faith. Yahweh does not say, and to seeds as if to others, but no. I say this, the law of the Levitical priesthood, which came into existence 430 years after the covenant, was already ratified by Yahweh, does not do away with nor abolish the promise. So there's people that say, oh, the Israelites, they threw it away, so the Most High doesn't want anything to deal with them. That's a part of British Israelism. But all throughout the scriptures, it says otherwise. No. Once you enter into a covenant with the Most High, you will keep your word. one way or another. Notice 18. For if the inheritance is outside the law, then it is no longer from the promise. So if you're coming up with new theories and anything up separate from what's written, okay, it's no longer valid. But Yahweh has given it to Abraham through the promise. What then was the purpose of the Levitical priesthood law? It was added 430 years after the covenant for forgiveness of transgressions, until the seed would come to whom it had been promised, ordained by Malachim or angels through the hand of the mediator. Right? And again, we see that bondage. We see that emphasis on the children of Israel of what will occur to them in the latter days. Okay? Notice Genesis 15:18 to 21. On that day, Yahweh made a covenant with Abram, saying, to your descendants I have given this land, from the river of Egypt to the great river Euphrates, the land of the Canaanites, the Kenizzites, and the Cadmonites, the Hittites, the Perizzites, and the Rephaites, the Amorites, and the Canaanites, and the Girgashites, and the Jebusites. This same land area, right up in here, which is occupied by the Gentile nations to this very day. Every single one of them, right up in here. Notice Genesis 17, 1 to 7. When Abram was 99 years old, Yahweh appeared to Abram and said to him, I am Almighty Yahweh, walk in my ways and be perfect. And I will make my covenant between me and you, and will multiply you exceedingly. Then Abram fell on his face, and Yahweh talked with him, saying, as for me, behold, my covenant is with you, and you shall be the father of many nations. No longer shall your name be called Abram, but your name shall be Abraham, for I have made you a father of many nations. I will make you exceedingly fruitful, and I will make nations of you, and kings shall come from you. I will establish my covenant as an everlasting covenant between me and you and your descendants after you. So an everlasting covenant has no lapse. It doesn't break. When the Most High says something, he means it. Notice, for all generations to come to be your father and the father of your descendants after you. Yeketske or Ezekiel 20:36 in the Amplified Bible. As I entered into judgment with your fathers in the wilderness of the land of Egypt, so I will enter into judgment and contend with you, says the Most High. We're going to get into this scripture later, but just so you know, the Most High is talking to the Pharisees at that time. They were going on with their lewdness and their wildness, and the Most High was just watching this as the children broke the covenant. And one day they said, you know what, let's go inquire of Yahweh. And then they went to Ezekiel or Yeketskiel, say, what does Yahweh say? And we'll get into it later, but the Most High was upset. Said, now you come to inquire of me all this time? And further goes on to say, you're going to be scattered into all nations. So number 37, he says, I will make you pass under the rod, as the shepherd does with his sheep when he counts them. And I will count you as mine, and constrain you, and bring you into the bond of the covenant to which you are permanently bound. As I said, that's going to make even more sense once we get onto that in the next few videos down the line. But my purpose here is to show you that those of the promise, the Israelites of the scriptures, they have to be in bondage, have to have a history of being in bondage for 100 years by a nation whom they don't know of, by a people who are terrible. And that people, after that 400 years, we don't know when, no man knows the day nor the hour, but there is going to be a judgment.